Hello and welcome back to Level 0 Literacy Between the Seasons. My name is Mason, and I am delighted to bring you our first Minisode on Katana Zero, a delightful little indie game that all of us enjoyed. There will be no mid-roll ad today because the episode is a mere 39 minutes. However, as always, we are going to spoil the events of the game from beginning to end throughout the episode, and we're going to discuss topics that include, but are not limited to, drug abuse, body horror, and violence and gore. Please use your best judgment before proceeding, and enjoy.
Hello everyone, this is Resident Samurai Sam, and I am joined by Resident Chronos Junkies Mason and Buck.
Kill the child, 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 kill the child.
And this is Level 0 Literacy. This episode we are discussing Katana Zero, a time manipulation platformer where you go room to room eliminating targets, go to therapy, and try to unravel the past. The entire game was mostly made by Justin Stander and has some extra writing from Eric Shoemaker. The duo found inspiration in films like Oldboy, Sin City, Drive, and Seven Samurai. You battle your way through a new neo-metropolis and figure out government cover-ups, struggle with PTSD, and find meaning again from a little girl who needs a father figure. Themes for Katana Zero include war fallout and the impact on soldiers, government experimentation, and drug addiction. This game slaps. It is so fun to play.
It's very good. It's very dense. The material is very, very dense. I will say that.
So, dear listeners, if you're not in the know about this game's probably only about 4 or 5 hours long. It's just pretty short, and for the most part, the gameplay segments don't have any bearing on the story. So the story is really compacted into probably like 90 minutes of on-screen interaction, and it's every moment of it. It's crazy.
Every moment of it is incredibly important and meaningful.
The dialogue system is super interesting.
Yeah, right? I like it.
The developers wanted you to have the ability to like not have to listen to all of the things people have to say, so you can just like mash past everything if you want to, and just be this like really aggressive, angry guy.
People think you're an asshole if you do that, if you keep interrupting them. It's really cool.
So, got a question for y'all.
I'm sure we have many questions.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that.
So the first thing that I want to ask is, how do you think Zero actually feels about what happened to him throughout this game?
I don't think he does.
It's very confusing, right?
Part of Zero's character to me is that up until he begins to build this relationship with the little girl and sort of become this father figure, is he is just heavily dissociating from everything that is happening in his current reality. You know, he believes his only worth, his only value is that he fought in a war and hopefully did some good by being a soldier. And I just don't think he really feels much about his directives. And it's not until he's able to feel a sense of importance again and try to gain control of his own life again that he's even able to like pick up and like care. You know what I mean? He is so mentally fractured as a person that his ability to like, I think to me, his ability to fixate on the events that are happening around him are very spotty, you know.
I think, man, that's a really tough question.
Because we get so little characterization out of him
Yeah.
throughout the game.
I think
Yeah.
that's intentional.
Yeah. It is. And it's like and like there's things that like he would obviously have to deal with that you don't get to like see him even consider dealing with, particularly the fact that he is a veteran in a war. People don't believe him because he doesn't look old because time doesn't affect him. And he is of the race of the people that your country was genociding.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does seem like to me that there is a struggle, like two competing desires within him to, as the events of the game progress, go back to how things were at the beginning of the game, with him just seeing the therapist and doing his job and then going home and relaxing. And then like this desire to, this like tragic desire to kind of push past everything and have a semblance of a normal life. And I think it's a tragic desire because it seems like through the information you're given through the game that seems out of reach for him where he is now, and not by his own doing. Because, you know, he wants to be a father figure for the little girl. He wants to enjoy a night on the town drinking with these other war vets. But in some ways, like his go to the therapist, do therapy, get a job, do the job,
drugs.
Get drugs, go home. Like that represents like some stability, right? That represents some predictability, which a lot of times is very, very difficult for him.
Yeah, that's what he needs because he doesn't know anything else. You know, he came from a life of being a soldier where that's a life where everything is directed for you, everything is decided for you.
And he even barely knows he's a soldier, right?
Yeah.
Like he
kind of discovers it over the course of the game.
Yeah, like he has a service medal, and the psychiatrist tells him the service medal is your reminder that you're a soldier, but you have no idea what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Literally not until the end of the game.
Yeah.
That whole time where you're trying to like piece your memory back together, and it turns out that you were not the person in your memory that you thought you were.
And like, oh man, the dream sequences are very jarring. Like, because it goes from looking like one thing to, obviously being very different than what you think the dream was.
Well, again, I think the part of this goes back to his wanting to dissociate, right? He doesn't even want to associate himself with the things he's done in his past, and so his fractured mind has compartmentalized out the concept that he was this horrible soldier following orders.
I wonder how much he doesn't want to, though. Like, because of how, the game forces you to kill everyone, except for one instance. The game forces you to kill everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I mean, I'm referring specifically to the scene where, well, you know what? Never mind. I don't think it would give you the option to try to say you don't like killing. So to give everyone context for what I mean, there's a specific instance where if you have tried to play Zero as not just wanting to be a murderous being, there is a specific point where like your Chronos withdrawal is kind of screwing up. And your psychiatrist, and you know what? Never mind, because I think the psychiatrist also has incentive to tell you you're just a murderous psychopath, right?
Yeah.
To kind of keep you in line with being an assassin, where you can attempt to say you don't like killing, but you can't do it.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing I struggle with Zero a little bit, as understanding what he wants, which, I mean, part of it is you have a choice in the things he says, right? But the other part is, like, I kind of wish I understood his logic of, like, killing everyone in certain situations where running is a possibility.
Yeah.
Because, like, there are some specific levels where you could just go through instead of killing everyone in the thing. But you can't do that.
There are just a precious few instances where you have the option not to kill anybody. In the stage, The Mansion, there is one NPC who you come across who's literally just breaking in to burglarize the place, completely separate from what you're doing. And you can, I mean, if you go walk up next to him, he'll kill you, but you can, like, walk in the room with him and look at him. You don't have to kill him. You kill every other guard and it'll be like, just keep going.
Huh.
Yeah, that guy has nothing to do with your mission.
I don't think I noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the same enemy outline and he's dressed in all black like a lot of the cops. So I wouldn't fault you for missing it, but I noticed he was, like, crouched down over a briefcase because I did that screen quite a few times, and I busted in there and I realized the go arrow was already up. I was like, oh, this guy's just a burglar. He has nothing to do with this. Can I give my long spiel about what I think this game's about?
Yeah.
To help my framing here. Okay. So this game is super obviously to me about, like, governments and huge institutions like warmongers using soldiers and turning, like, regular people into just monsters. We've seen a lot of instances of this throughout history. I'm thinking of 3 specific ones. Number 1, the set of Olympics when Russia was unknowingly doping their athletes. Number 2,
unknowingly to the athletes.
To the athletes. Number 2, when Japan would inject kamikaze flyers with methamphetamine to reduce their judgment and inhibition, so they would be okay with killing themselves. And 3, the United States MK Ultra experiments, where we unknowingly, well, you know, I know because I know more U.S. history. I know a lot more of instances in the U.S. MK Ultra is just the one I know the most. Like, I know the best, where we unknowingly to the subjects experimented on random United States citizens for these, like, really crazy, freakish ends that had no basis in reality. And this game is like, yeah, like, governments that do this, like, turn people into monsters when it's, like, for the purposes of war and things like that. You know, in some instances, like, you roid up your Olympians and they are subject to roid rage. You know, some instances it's like, yeah, you've made a kamikaze pilot, and I don't have to, like, go into why that's making
Bad.
A monster.
Yeah.
But, like, this is just, like, turning those into, like, supernatural monsters. And even, like, some of the characters, the headhunter is like, yeah, we're like gods, but we're at the whims of these, like, small-minded old men.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with everything you said.
I thought that was a huge line, a huge scene.
It's also, I really think that they were going for a Vietnam vibe with
Yes.
Yeah.
how
Absolutely.
the war was framed.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The old man scene where he's like, I thought we were going to get so much pussy when we got back, and they hated us.
Even, like, when you look at the village of, like, at the end of the game, if you just, like, look at the landscape of what it looks like, that, to me, kind of, like, jungle-esque, like, underdeveloped country. I mean, that's obviously a lot of wars around that time, but still.
You know, a lot of the narrative around the Vietnam War for me is, why were we there? What was the point of doing it? because these people in this game also feel that way.
Yeah.
They didn't even win the war, whatever the goal of that was, which I kind of wish the game went into what not winning that war meant, considering they were genociding entire.
Oh, it meant that, not New Mecca, what was the other side called? The other side won the war.
Yeah. How did the other side win?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, it seems like from what I gathered, it was because the null experiment in all but a few cases was really unsuccessful because like all of the alpha nulls died and a lot of the beta nulls died, and only 2 of the gamma nulls were ever successfully produced, and then they're both like psychologically very unstable
And literally drug addicted.
Yeah.
Because if they don't get Kronos, they will suffer for all eternity in a hellscape of their own creation.
I think another way you could read it was that it was not New Mecca who did the Kronos experiments. It was the other country, and then they won and took over New Mecca.
I imagine these things are all going to be further explored in the inevitable sequel.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily have all the answers right now, but I would, given how this game wraps, in that there is literally people that are going to try to dismantle the government, there's going to be more exploration of that. So, we don't have all the answers yet, and that's okay. I want to talk about the masked men.
They were a very interesting little element.
I'm really interested to know what y'all's read on them were.
I legitimately think there's some kind of supernatural beings that exist because of the Kronos experiments.
Yeah, they're definitely like Kronos dudes.
I don't know what they are. I do not think they are human.
Yeah, I don't think they are. Like they can't be realistically.
I think they are like I think they exist.
Yeah. You don't think they're like a manifestation of Zero's like conscious or something?
Yeah,
crap like that.
I mean mainly because we know that they can affect the girl too.
Right.
Yeah.
But also just the first off, I appreciate that the at the end of Chinatown you can choose to die and then that not affect anything.
Honest to God, that's the good ending.
Yeah,
I swear.
that is the good ending.
That's the good
ending. Because it seems like the good ending because the girl doesn't get affected by the masked men anymore, you would assume. Because I think the only reason the masked men end up with the girl in the first place is because you choose to continue going.
Right. You put on the mask of death.
Literally every other thing in the entire game would have played out the same way if Zero wasn't there. All Kasim's family would have died because the headhunter was also going to the vault to get Kronos, so she would have killed Al Kasim's family. Whoever Snow was working for is still going to go to war because it was after V died. The only thing that is even a little different is the therapist is still alive instead of Zero, and that's like very minimal.
Oh, speaking of Al Kasim's I guess I'm a little confused. Al Kasim's family, do you mean the people in the safe at the end of the game?
Yes.
Yeah. Zero didn't kill them, right?
He did not.
No. He left when they were still alive.
Which
is why you end up killing the therapist. Why you end up killing the psycologist.
Yeah.
The killing of the psychologist is one of the most brutal things I've ever seen done in pixel art.
I mean, like a lot of scenes in this game are very uncomfortable, but that was like one of the most.
Oh man, like, V's torture scenes too.
V's torture scenes were brutal.
Oh god. Oh man.
The V torture scenes are like some of the best use of like the time travel Kronos mechanic in this game, or like the way it was used as far as like a storytelling medium, where it's like V being aware of you being
a
null just like magnifies his ability to brutalize you.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, so How did that scene end for y'all? Because the way I ended that scene was actually, that was the only time I was like smashing the red text.
It's been so long since I played. I can't remember.
mashed the red text. I was...
Because
the thing where you're like, you're looking for my approval.
Yeah.
I was doing those. It gave you a very long red window on those, so
Yeah.
it seemed to me like it was
I
like
thought
very
that's
much
what-
intending.
Yeah. You had to like piss him off. Like
I think that's the intended way for you
Yeah.
to do that.
we haven't talked about V much. V's just like he's a sadistic, fucked up little Russian.
Yeah.
I can't tell if he's on Kronos because he talks about nulls like there's some kind of other group, but he also has the ability to kind of inject himself into timelines that you're traveling through. So there's like some kind of different sort of thing with him that makes him more powerful. He's also like got this sort of artistic flair to him. This like he fancies himself like an artist in how he's like this brutal killer in a way that makes Zero look down on him, which is like incredibly ironic. It's like one of the best exchanges in the game happened in V's car, where you have the opportunity to tell him like you're subhuman for the way that he like is so brutally violent for like seemingly no reason, and then at the end of the game when you're killing the therapist says to you, you're subhuman. It's like, holy fuck. It's like incredible.
So do y'all think the mask guys are like weird?
I think they're real. I'm definitely on like...
I think they're real, and I think they're Kronos dudes. They might be like alpha nulls or something. Or...
I'm kind of on the camp that they are like, somehow influenced by Kronos.
They could be a continuation of the Null project that went on after the war that Zero doesn't know about, like Delta Nulls or something. They could be your neighbors. Your neighbors are Kronos guys now. I find that less likely, but they do enjoy fucking with you and being annoying like your neighbors do. There's a lot. I think they're definitely real because they have very palpable effects on the universe.
Wait. Do they show up before your neighbors are killed by V?
No.
So it could be.
Even if they're your neighbors.
Even if they didn't, you can't die if you have Kronos in one timeline.
Because he told you that he injected them with something that would torture them forever.
Right? He pretty much tells you he injects them with Kronos.
Yeah. He's telling you that they're going to go through Kronos withdrawal.
Yeah. Okay. Huh.
But like, I don't find that like too compelling because I don't think that the neighbors are characterized as like these cruel.
Yeah.
I mean, we could learn later, and then it's like, going through Kronos withdrawal turns you into like a horrible, fucked up thing like this, but that would be like something I wouldn't really be able to buy into until the sequel comes out. I think they're supposed to be like later Kronos experiments or earlier Kronos experiments, and they're just like these other weird dudes that have their own devices. Because I think like this game is a lot about like these factions of people that you can't know that have their own like series of motivations that are getting in your way that you don't care to understand, right? Because like part of Zero being unable to die because of the Kronos use is that for the canonical ending, you don't really have to think too hard about being like, oh yeah, I'll choose to live right now. Like I can't die anyway. Like I'm just going to choose the convenient path that gets me towards my goal. Can we talk about the music and the sound design?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
This is wild how good this game is. Really, it's a very standout soundtrack among the games that we've done.
It's also like diegetic.
Oh yeah, it's all diegetic.
Zero is listening to that music.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Literally puts on the tape before he goes through the building and murders a bunch of people.
It's really cool. And he's able to keep listening to it continuously through attempts.
And I noticed something during the elevator scene that I never noticed before, which might have just been a weird glitch with my controller, but during the elevator stages, my controller was vibrating with the music.
That was probably intentional.
Yeah, it's probably intentional. That's
But
probably
was it vibrating with the music at any other point?
I didn't play with a controller.
I played with a controller, and I didn't have vibration during any other parts.
Okay.
Except for like when I would like swing the sword.
Yeah, I only noticed during the elevators, like going down at the end of the game.
That was probably because it was like a sound design choice. It's like you're alone. There's like straight up no other outside like audio stimuli. It's just you in the elevator, so you focus on the music harder, or Zero does in game.
Okay, so I guess if we're talking about if things are real or not, let's talk about the little girl.
Oh my god,
that's a tough one.
Oh,
that's a tough one because she appears in your.
You first
dreams.
see her in the dream, and
Yeah.
then once you find out more about the dream, she isn't in the dream anymore. But then you see her in real life, which I mean, who even is her dad?
Supposedly the junkie that lives on the other side of you.
Yeah.
Not the
Not the
guys that are
neighbors who are
assholes, but
murdered.
yeah.
Well, I mean that is also supposedly murdered. But
I mean, she has like this is like the things we were talking about earlier. Like she has some effects on the world that are measurable. Like she makes soup in your house.
yeah,
That you know, it's like I don't think Zero made that soup and then tricked himself into thinking the little girl did it.
Right.
yeah.
But
I guess it's less about like, is she real and like by what measure is she a part of this reality? That's the interesting part to me.
I think she's much more interesting, not as a thing that could be real or fake, but as like a personification of the desire that Zero has to just like lead a normal life.
Yeah.
To have like something he can point to know he did something good that's not his war service medal, because as we learned, he was a monster in the war. He did nothing that deserved a medal of heroism, right? He could just like be a father figure to this little girl, and that was like maybe the first meaningful thing he did to his life, because according to the psychiatrist, he's a fucking crazy psychopath. Well, I don't necessarily know that that's true. They might be just sort of
Manipulating.
Well, when
justifying their own crazy decisions. But
when you're making a super soldier, right? Like it might be easier to convince the super soldier that you love killing.
yeah.
Right? Like it's
Well, it's like even like Zero's like backgrounds, even his history is like, I don't know, dude, you probably had like a normal childhood. But we know that's almost assuredly not true, because the Null Project requires you to start at a very young age. So like, I mean, the psychiatrist is like 100% lying to Zero
Yeah.
a lot. I mean, literally you find in his briefcase at the end of the game that they're going to just kill you once you start figuring out what's actually going on.
which you already even know at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The dossier you find is just like confirmation of
yeah.
it.
And it's definitely like, yeah, the conversations you have with the psychiatrist, like leading into the later parts of the game, he definitely betrays his own sort of like view of you anyway.
Well, it's like he was losing the reins, right? Like, this is the point at which the game gets you in. It's like this is like the end of what Zero's been doing post-war, right? Effectively, that's what we're seeing. Is he's effectively eliminated almost everyone that needs to be eliminated, and you're now picking up the pieces. And for some reason, which, you know, something that's interesting to me is, why would the government now at this point be, okay, we have to get rid of the Chronos? And where is the Chronos coming from? For the psychologist, psychiatrist, I don't know the word. Where is it coming from that the psychologist can get it, but the headhunter can't?
The psychologist. Well, you're the psychologist, and you are agents of the government, so they probably have some as remnants of the program, right?
But if Al-Qasim, is it like a storage?
Al-Qasim's in jail, right? So he has the means to manufacture it, but he doesn't personally have any.
It's a little convoluted.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to chew on. I think we should do one moments if we have some for this.
Do we have some?
I definitely have one.
I mean, mine's like, I'll go first because mine's the most obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the scene with the little girl on the roof. I know it's like, that's like one of the easiest things to point to in this game and be like, that's my thing. But it's not just the fact that that is a very good scene. It's the fact that this is, if I'm remembering correctly, the only point in the game where Zero talks without you directing him.
Yeah.
And there's something about making that decision to me that it's almost like Zero is starting to become his own person again, rather than just a cog, a person working, a person just making his way through life and following orders. He is beginning to develop a sense of self again. And that's one of those times where in game design, it's so important to make decisions that make sense and that matter in the context of what you're trying to accomplish. And the fact that there was a conscious decision to allow Zero to talk on his own terms here just really spoke to me about how strong the developers felt that like it was necessary for this to be the thing that Zero said in this moment. Even if it's a little cheesy. I'm not going to say it's not. It's a little cheesy, and that's okay. But
this game has its roots in like pulp. Right?
Yeah.
So cheesy is kind of what you expect.
So I appreciate that in a game with a lot of player-controlled action and very rough, gruff dialogue and all this other stuff, that there is this moment of characterization where Zero is allowed to just be his own person for a moment.
My moment is a thing that may or may not happen, depending on whether or not you're an asshole to the nice reception lady.
She's not nice.
Yes, she is.
She called the cops on me.
I don't even know why she called the cops on
interrupting her. That's not a nice thing to do.
Well, if you are nice to her, you see her as the reception lady in the final level of the game, and like you talk to her about anime again, and she'll like you can offer to like take her out on a date, and she'll like really like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so fucking depressing considering you know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end. Just, Also, I don't have a moment for it because I haven't done it. There is a very funny anime style thing that you can do with her where the anime you made up is like a card game.
Sounds about right.
That actually exists, by the way. Like, I think it does actually exist, but it's hard to find because the casino guy says he knows who you're cosplaying when he sees you.
Yeah.
Oh. That's pretty good. All right. My one moment, I have to fill backwards from what we were talking about with context. The two guys that we were talking about earlier, the masked men. From the beginning of the game, you receive these little statuses at the beginning of each level that say like 10 days remain. And it's basically counting down the days until you have to make a choice whether you live or die. And the masked men are the ones who kind of facilitate that choice for you. During one of Zero's Chronos withdrawals, you can flash forward to just under 2 years after the day you're supposed to die, and it has taken the place of a war veteran who's a bum on the streets begging for money. And the two masked guys are there making fun of you, just like Zero was antagonizing the war veteran when he first encountered them early in the game. And they say one of the most poignant lines, and it's something to the effect of, he's just a man addicted to drinking, and when the drink is all gone, only the bottle remains. Which is to say that after Zero's kind of the bottle of liquor here, after he's run his course of usefulness, only this empty shell is left. Only this man begging for scraps, begging to be filled up again, is left. And I was like, oh my God, that's like incredibly impactful. That was a huge moment for me.
I mean, at the end of the day, this game is about how war and drug addiction turns people into essentially husks of them former, shadows of their former selves. We don't even know who Zero could have been before he was a null and a soldier. We can't even begin to conceptualize what that'd be, because there's not even people in the game that probably even know what he was like as a child. So, it's just, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
This game's also a lot. One thing I found a lot in the characters, and I'm going to part the kimono a bit. I just finished the game last night. I haven't really pieced together what it means in the sort of greater scheme of what the authors were trying to say here, is that all of the main characters in the game kind of have another character they look down on, that they kind of look down their nose at. With Zero, it's V. He says he's subhuman, and also a little bit the war veteran who he meets partway through the game. For V, it's the drug addict neighbors. For the therapist, it's Zero. For Snow, it's V. And it's just like there's this constant, one of the biggest forms of intercharacter tension in this game is a sense of superiority from one to the other. And it's the game does a lot to characterize the cruelty of the world of District 3. But it seems like every one of these characters thinks that they're the only one that has it figured out, or they're the best of the best, or they're the strongest or the smartest, or the only one who's not an animal. It's and it speaks a lot to something.
It speaks a lot. I think it just speaks a lot.
There's just
the human condition.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out where to piece that in to the sort of greater narrative and themes.
Yeah. Well, I think we need a little bit more, right? Because we don't know anything about the real dragon, really.
Yeah.
Besides that Zero was his partner.
Yep.
You got that he and the headhunter are working together against the government.
Yeah, they're basically, 15 is on some kind of revenge drive to stop the government from doing to more people what they have done to the nulls. Trying to stop the government from continuing to experiment with the concept of making better soldiers and better whatever their ends might be.
I'm also very curious to know what Snow's Snow's boss's goal is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to guess.
They're going to war with the government. They could be loyalists to the losing army. That seems plausible to me.
Well, I guess we'll find all that stuff out in Katana 02. But is there any...
I was going to say Katana 1.
Katana 1. But is there any closing thoughts for Katana 0? I know this is a short episode, but it's a short game, so...
If you like trippy games, and if you like games that don't say what they have to say very directly, that you have to sort of think a lot about and figure out how you feel personally about it. This is definitely the game for you. Also, completely unrelated to the narrative, I know we're a narrative podcast, movement in this game, buttery smooth.
Feels really good. This game feels
so
great
fun to play.
It's so funny, like, these particular games are so interesting because, like, often when people are like, oh man, it's a pixel game, nostalgia bait, whatever, it's like, Super Nintendo games didn't feel like this, man.
No,
Yeah,
they feel good to play. Those games felt awful.
This was an artistic choice that was hearkening back to a time period, not a video game design period.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to play Katana Zero, you can find it on, as far as I know, any platform you pretty much want.
Bye. I hope you'll excuse the abrupt ending from us. We had a lot of fun with this episode, and if you want to play along, our next minisode will be on the game Celeste. We hope that you listen along, and thanks.